How did we get to this point in our society where so few gain so much?
2 nights ago, right after I got here, I had the extraordinary privilege of being in the House of Commons during that historic vote and watching this country have its argument about essentially turning the English Channel into a seawall while the U.S. government, where I come from, is shut down because of another wall fantasy. And it seems to me that this is happening because for 30 or 40 years, we have been living in a winners-take-all society, to a great extent, in America to an extreme extent, where the very few, the people who've been on the right side of the great changes of our age, of globalization, of digitization, of trade, have fought for a set of economic arrangements, taxation, labor policy, monopoly, antitrust, lobbied for rigged systems, yes, rigged systems, that all but guarantee that very few people benefit from the extraordinary changes of our lifetimes.
We have seen this in history time after time. I'll go to the Gilded Age of the 1900s and the whole argument at the end of the 19th century on this. How does it end? How do you move from the imbalances to a beneficial outcome for all?
I think it ends when people stop believing the BS of every age. Every age of savage, unequal distribution has its own BS. If you watch Downton Abbey, there was a set of beliefs that held the upstairs, downstairs world of feudal England together. Everybody sort of believed the story. The story of our time is that the people who have monopolized progress, who have stolen the future from the public in Britain, in the U.S. and elsewhere, are the change agents. Mark Zuckerberg, who's one of the great monopolists of our time and compromised American democracy, is changing the world. The financial industry, which caused the financial crisis, rebrands itself through CSR and little programs to empower some people here, empower some people there, instead of actually ever being brought to justice. Amazon,
well,
another monopoly.
Are you advocating an anarchy, or are you advocating some form of Marxist revolution?
I'm advocating the restoration of democracy in this country and the United States and elsewhere, where you actually have public policy and leaders who reflect the aspirations of regular people.
But Anand, there's one actually number that I can't reconcile, which is life expectancy worldwide has increased to 71.5 years. Now, it's different if you're a man or a woman, but aren't we having collectively a better life, an easier life?
The world is not really a world. There's a lot of variety in what's gone on. You're right at the aggregate number. The aggregate number is largely because of what's happened in India and China over the last 30, 40 years, each of which has their own very particular story of the really crappy policies they had before, which they got rid of in the last 30, 40 years, getting past their experiments and having some mix of capitalism, but also a lot of government action in both of those countries over the last few decades. My focus is many of the advanced countries of the West, which have left most of their people feeling, and often it's actually true, that the world is rigged against them, that there's no correlation between the efforts they make, the things they study, and their ability to live a good life on the other side. I know this is a business channel. I'm not a business channel guy, but I will say, even for the people watching this as investors...
Hold on, you're not a business channel guy?
No, he
with a coat like that?
Right, exactly.
Is he, is it true? Is it a belief that they can't, or are there actually barriers?
It is absolutely true. What is the core belief of the United States, where I come from? Social mobility, the American dream. You will end up where you end up because of what you do in your life. Do you know that belief is least true in the United States among the rich countries? The thing that Americans most think is true about them is actually least true about them.
This is important. We're on our way to Davos here, and you would be so welcome at Davos, and you are dressed for the piano bar Wednesday night. Anand, I want to know what your message is to the elites at Davos, who frankly many agree with you and would like to see a calmness or a leveling of some of these excesses. What's your counsel to the elite of Davos?
Time is running out for them to get on the right side of history. The people gathering, first of all, I believe Davos, I know you're heading over there, I believe it should be canceled this year. But the United States government,
I will
I've
tell you, made reservations.
I know you have. You should still go there and just enjoy the town.
Oh, I do. The takeout pizza is awesome. Yeah. Why should they cancel Davos this year?
Davos should be canceled this year because the United States government is shut down.
Okay, Trump's canceled.
Because Brexit chaos. Because of what's been happening in France with Gilets jaunes.
Is that all the more reason to have it so that elites can argue?
It's all the more reason to have something different that is the anti-Davos, which is actually representatives of people around the world, people actually from communities, not the plutocratic elite that has seceded from communities. Let me just say this.
But Davos is also emerging market economies going there to try and attract foreign direct investments.
Sure.
Right? So it's also countries trying to actually showcase to investors the reforms they're doing. So it's not only about the elites, it's also about attracting capital.
Davos is a family reunion.
Needs.
I'm sorry, but Davos is a family reunion of the people who broke the world.
To take this...
Okay, the world we live in that you cover has worked for a narrow slice of people, as your dad warned you to expect.
Right.
And the people, that didn't just happen. That's not just forces. We often talk about the forces of our... These aren't forces. These were outcomes designed through policy and through fighting for policies that were going to create a winner-take-all world. I want to bring it from this London set back to the U.S. You're showing up on MSNBC. It's Saturday morning. You and Gura are going at it on MSNBC. And the basic theme is the Democrats to the rescue on MSNBC. Can the Democrats come to the rescue with the polarity of Speaker Pelosi and the Congresswoman from the Bronx? Can the Democrats actually get it done within a new liberal order? It's not a foregone conclusion that they can. And by the way, even when I was in the House of Commons 2 nights ago, watching, frankly, the Prime Minister and then the opposition leader was like watching a competition of two people, each trying to be the more uninspiring avatar of the 1970s. There is a real problem of inspiration. I think that's true of the Democrats also. Most of the people I criticize in this book probably voted for Democrats because you have the kind of Koch brother billionaires who are very clear about their effort to hijack public policy. But you also have the kind of democratic plutocrats, the Mark Zuckerbergs, frankly, the Michael Bloombergs, since we're here, the Jeff Bezos types, who have actually been just as much of a part of building this winners-take-all infrastructure.
If we go back to the book, so you're basically trying to explain the spreading backlash against the global elite. That's populism. Are the populists of this world, President Trump, the pro-Brexit people here, the Gilets jaunes, and the Italians, are they helping out the common person?
There is, like everything in political life, there is good populism and there's bad populism. Part of what I think happened when people
Where do you see good populism right now?
I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whether you agree with her policy prescriptions or not, is a much better populism than Donald Trump. It's an explanatory populism.
Did she get a Democratic critical mass to have an effect?
For someone who's been in Congress, we're still in the first month that she took in. She's changed the Democratic Party quite a bit, just from actually staking out simple positions,
so are you suggesting
using Instagram to explain marginal tax rates to people. And you know what? People 20 years older than her who've been in this game a lot longer, when they announce they're running for president, as the first thing are being asked whether they agree with her positions. I'm not endorsing any particular position of hers, but I think she's an example of how you can actually speak to some of the same emotions that Brexit speaks to, that Trump speaks to, a feeling of things being rigged, a feeling of being shot out of progress. But you can actually, there's a big choice when you speak to those emotions. You can lead people to punch up at the plutocrats who helped get us into this mess, or you can lead people to punch out at Polish people, Mexican people, the outside world.
Can they legislate forward to a common outcome, or is it just noise as the elites move on?
If you look at her proposal around the marginal tax rate on incomes of $10 million or more. At first, everybody was this is crazy. You have these older Democratic leaders saying, this is not wise. This is not wise. Then they poll it, and surprisingly, it polls much higher than all those establishment Democrats thought, because most people don't earn $10 million a year. You take other issues. I spent a lot of time traveling the country in the last year, the United States. If you take issues like monopoly, antitrust, crony capitalism, corruption in Washington, lobbying, there are interesting, creative possibilities on the left and right. There are a lot of people on the right who love business, but don't love big business buying access in Washington. There's a lot of people on the right who love entrepreneurs, but don't love monopolies. And so I think there are actually, for people, smarter people on the right than Donald Trump, but also people like AOC there, and Bernie and others, and Elizabeth Warren. There's an opportunity right now to organize that anger in smarter ways.
Isn't the only way to encourage and change social mobility through education? And is
it's
that
one of the most important
ones? And is that
ones.
where you start?
And right now in the United States, how do we fund education? Oh, you have a really big house because you live in this zip code? Let's give you a better public school. Oh, you live in a poor neighborhood, you have a really small house with a low cost, let's give you a worse public school. Well, that's a really dumb and cruel way to organize that.